Welcome back to the conclusion of our sets and Venn diagrams material. We are going to look at some problems, application problems, and try to see how we can use Venn diagrams to solve them. When we go to do these problems, the key thing is to set up a Venn diagram and use it to organize the information they give you. Fill in as many blanks as you can, many regions as you can in the Venn diagram. And then once you've used all the information, once you've exhausted everything they've supplied, making your Venn diagram, then you can look at, well, what is it they're asking for? And then use the Venn diagram to help you answer those questions. Okay, so best bet for figuring out how to do this is to see some examples. So I'm going to give you an example of one where we're just going to use a Venn diagram with 2 circles, and then I'll give you an example of one where we use a Venn diagram with 3 circles. Okay, first one with 2 circles. I'm pulling this straight out of your current textbook. I'm going on page 78, which is section 2.5. I am looking at number 2. It's a good example of one where you're going to use 2 circles. Okay, so what it says is, during the fall festival at Wambach's Farmers Market, 200 customers made the following purchases. It says 109 purchased pumpkins, and then you have 98 that purchased pies. You have 61 that purchased both pumpkins and pies. And then it says, of those surveyed, how many purchased only pumpkins, how many purchased only pies, how many did not purchase either of these items. Alright, let me jot down some of the information. We have Fall Festival, at Wambach's Farmers Market. Okay, and then it says there's 200 customers. And they made the following purchases. We have 109 that purchased pumpkins. We have 98 that purchased pies. And we have 61 that purchased both pumpkins and pies. Okay, so before we start trying to answer the questions, let's organize this information. And since we're dealing with 2 different items, and we're talking about quantities of those, and then we see information about both, we can set up a Venn diagram to help us. Now, just off the bat, just looking at this data right now, look at it and think if anything looks a little off to you. I'll give you a couple seconds to kind of look at it. And notice there's 200 customers. And then look at what they told us about the purchasing from those 200 customers. Usually in my face-to-face classes, pretty quickly a student pipes up and goes, wait a minute. Like right here, 109 and 98 add up to more than 200. They add up to 207. They haven't even included the 61 yet, which would add up to 268. Something doesn't make sense. Well, true and false. It does look like something's off at first glance, but it does make sense, and I'll explain in a minute. Alright, so looking at it even more carefully, notice they tell us that 61 purchased both pumpkins and pies. But when we look at how many purchased pumpkins and how many purchased pies, they don't tell us that 109 purchased pumpkins only. And they don't tell us that 98 purchased pies only. They just were adding up how many people purchased pumpkins and got 109. They didn't say, that those people, maybe those people went off too and bought other things like pies. So since they didn't say only, we have to assume that they're just tallying pumpkins, tallying pies, and then this piece of information about both pumpkins and pies is going to help us to tease out more from this 109 and this 98. And that's exactly why we need the Venn diagram. So in this section, you have to read the wording very carefully. If they say only, then you know for sure that number has to do with, like they said only pumpkins, and well, that number just has to do with pumpkins and not people who also bought pies. But they didn't say that. So what we're looking at here is a Venn diagram of two circles. One circle for pumpkins. This is a timely example, as right now, as I'm doing this recording, it's the month of September, and Pumpkin Spice Everything came out on September 1st. Come on, we're in Florida and we're still swimming in the pool. I don't need Pumpkin Spice Everything yet. But anyhow. Okay. So we can break this up into two circles. And just like in our last two lessons, we're going to see if we can fill in overlaps before working our way out to other parts of the circles. And we can right away. We have information that 61 bought both pumpkins and pies. So immediately we can put 61 right here in that overlap. That represents how many people purchased both. Because remember, the intersection, you can use the word and in there. How many purchased pumpkins and pies? Whereas union, you use the word or. Like if it was pumpkins or pies, that would be union and be the entire two circles. But it's not. It's pumpkins and pies. Okay. Now going back to the 109 pumpkins. Well, look at that. The circle for pumpkins already has 61 in it. So before we fill out the rest of that circle, we need to take out the 61. And if we put 48 right here, now that entire circle represents the 109 pumpkin purchases. Then for the pies, 98 pies. Well, again, pie circle also has 61 in it already, so we don't want to double count that. So we're going to take the 61 from the 98 pie purchases, and we see we need to put a 37 here. And that way now the entire pie circle has 98 in it. That's starting to look a little better, because now if we take 48, 61, and 37, we're not going to be going over 200. In fact, we're under. And that's okay. There's a reason. I'll check my work here. Yeah, we're under. So that makes it a little more interesting, right? Well, if we're under, remember the whole rectangle has to represent the universal set, which in this case is 200 customers. So apparently there are 200 minus 146 that didn't purchase pies or pumpkins. There's 54 out here that don't fit in the pumpkins or pies circles. And now the 48 plus 61 plus 37 plus that additional 54 tallies up to the 200 customers we had up here. Okay, so the problem goes on. After we set up the Venn diagram, we're expected to answer a few questions in this problem. The problem asks, how many purchased only pumpkins? So now we see the word only. Well, that would be the 48 right here, because 61 also purchased pies. So out of the pumpkin circle, 48 were only pumpkins. How many purchased only pies? Well, that's 37 right here. That's not the overlap. And then, how many did not purchase either? That's the 54 we got. They don't bother to ask about both because the problem already supplied that until the 61 purchased both pumpkins and pies. But we have 54 that didn't purchase either pumpkins or pies. Who knows? They might have purchased something else, or they might have not purchased anything at all that day. Might have just walked around and browsed. So there you go. So there's an example of kind of word problem you'll face when you're dealing with Venn diagrams and trying to fill out Venn diagram and then seeing what your final answer is. Alright, let's go ahead and do also one with 3 circles. In the current textbook, this is number 8 on page 79. But I'm going to go ahead and jot down the information. They took a survey of 85 customers at Barnes & Noble. The Barnes & Noble bookstore. And they found out that out of those customers, 44 bought mysteries that day, when they were there. When they took the survey. 44 had purchased mysteries. 33 had purchased science fiction. 29 had purchased romance. 13 had purchased mysteries and science fiction. 5 have purchased science fiction and romance. 11 had purchased mysteries and romance. 2 had purchased all 3 types. And it goes on and asks us some questions, like how many of the customers purchased only mysteries, or how many purchased mysteries and sci-fi but not romance, or how many purchased mysteries or sci-fi, mysteries or sci-fi but not romance, or exactly 2 types. So there's all kinds of questions about what's going on here. So let's draw a Venn diagram and organize our information first, and then we'll tackle those questions using our Venn diagram. Okay, we're going to need 3 circles because there's 3 different types of information. We got mystery purchases, sci-fi purchases, and romance purchases. So I'm going to make this circle here my mysteries, this one my sci-fi, and then this one my romance. Okay, so in filling this out, if we can, we're going to start in the center and kind of work our way out. So in the very center here, that's the data for all 3 types. How many people purchased all 3 types? And we only had 2 that walked out with a mystery, a science fiction, and a romance. Now as we work our way from there, we see that 11 purchased mysteries and romance, which would be this overlap right here. And is intersection. And has an N in it for intersection. But that overlap already has a 2 in it. So what we do is we put a 9 right here, so that 9 plus 2 is 11. 5 purchased science fiction and romance. So in this overlap, we need 5. So 5 minus 2 is 3. 2 plus 3 gives us 5. 13 purchased mysteries and sci-fi. Look at the mysteries and sci-fi overlap here. We need to put an 11. 11 plus 2 makes 13. So the 2 for all 3 types went in the center. For mysteries and romance, we had to do the 11 minus 2, which gave us 9 for that one part. For 5 in the sci-fi and romance, we had to do 5 minus 2, which gave us 3. And then for 13 in the mysteries and sci-fi, we had to do 13 minus 2, which gave us the 11. because we want the entire overlap to add up to that number. Alright, for romance, there's 29 total, but our romance circle already has a 9, a 2, and a 3. I'll add up to 14. So you subtract and you get 15. So you put a 15 out here, and now the romance circle adds up to 29. 33 sci-fi, but sci-fi circle already has an 11, a 2, and a 3. 16, so you subtract, and you get 17 to put out here in the sci-fi circle. And then in mysteries, there's 44, but the mystery circle already has 11, 2, and 9. You subtract, and you get 22 to put out here in the mysteries, rest of the mystery circle. And then for those who purchase none of those, you've got 85 customers. And you got to subtract, okay, the 22 plus 11 plus 17 plus 9 plus 2 plus 3 plus 15. So I'm getting 79 here. You have to subtract 85 and 79, and you get 6. And that's what goes out here. That's what the 6 is. It goes out here. So 6 of those people who were surveyed purchased none of those types of books. They might have purchased other types, or they might have not purchased any books at all. We don't know. They haven't given us enough information. Alright. So there's the Venn diagram. Now we can answer the questions. How many purchased only mysteries? Well, in the mystery circle, the number that's not in any overlap is the 22. So that's the number for only mysteries. Mysteries and sci-fi but not romance. Okay, mysteries and sci-fi is this overlap of 11 and 2. But they said but not romance, so you got to leave out this 2 that's in the romance circle. So it's just 11. Mysteries or sci-fi. Remember, or is union. So mysteries or sci-fi, you got to take the 22 plus 11 plus 9 plus 2 from the mysteries plus the extra 17 and 3 from sci-fi and add those up. I'm getting 64. Mysteries or sci-fi but not romance. Why did it do that? For some reason my pen keeps wanting to turn into a mouse instead of a pen. My husband's my tech person. I'll have to see if he can fix that before I do any more. Anyways, apologize. Alright, so mysteries are sci-fi but not romance. So in this case, you got to make sure anything that's in the romance circle gets left out. So mysteries or sci-fi is still union, but we have to leave out. Last time we added up the 22, the 11, the 17, the 9, the 2, and 3. This time we have to leave out the 9, 2, and 3 because that's in romance. So just the 22, the 11, and the 17, which would give me 50. And And then how many purchased exactly 2 types? Well, you've got the 11 that purchased mysteries and sci-fi but not romance. You've got the 9 that purchased mysteries and romance but not sci-fi. And you've got the 3 that purchased sci-fi and romance but not mysteries. And that gives you 23. So now we've been able to answer the 5 questions they had asked on that problem. Okay, so watch for the wording. If they say only, then you know you have to look at the part of the circle that's only that and not any overlaps. If they say but not, make sure you leave out that part of the overlap. If they say and, we're talking intersection. If they say or, we're talking union. Exactly 2 types, you're looking at just the overlap for the 2 and not 3. You know, just little things like that. Watch the wording. That's the big thing. But really what gets people tripped up the most is setting up the Venn diagram. Start in the middle, work your way out, make sure your numbers add up total to what they're giving you, unless, if it doesn't specify otherwise. If it specifies only or something, then that's different. But if they say 44 mysteries, make sure your mystery circle adds up to 44. Things like that. Alright, well, plenty of those to have fun with. Good luck! And this is the last of the content for your first unit test, so I wish you good luck on preparing for that as well. When I see you again, we will be diving into logic and truth tables. Can't wait!